At the Peach Blossom Village, her big sister was giving little Lu Xiangxiang a warning that she must not reveal her identity because the Federation will hunt her, imprison her as an experiment subject, and maybe even kill her. Lu Xiangxiang asked her sister what she would do if someone accidentally found out, and her sister told her that she must kill the person before they reveal her secret. Smokes and explosions were everywhere as Lu Renjia was single-handedly fighting with the entire horde of demonic beasts down below. Multiple monkeys swarmed on top of him, but he deflected all of them effortlessly. Lu Xiangxiang thought of the warning her sister gave her, and she immediately realized that it was impossible as he was way too strong. The Monkey King was taken aback by Lu Renjia's overwhelming strength and asked him if he was an enhancement-type awakener. Lu Renjia raised his hands into the air, and he summoned a claw-looking aura that shredded the bodies of the monkeys mobbing towards him. Chopped monkey body parts were flying around. He faced the Monkey King and answered that it was half right. The Monkey King was surprised, and its expression turned to delight when it realized that Lu Renjia could be a dual awakener. It was pleased and laughed as its day was full of surprises and told Lu Renjia that it never encountered such physique, so it would make sure to cherish him as his experimental subject. It looked down on Lu Renjia and asked him if he thought he could fight him just because he killed a group of little monkeys. The Monkey King decided that Lu Renjia was impressive, so he was worthy to witness his true strength. It started bulging up and waves of aura swept through the surroundings, creating a gust of wind. The wind reached Lu Xiangxiang, who was still hanging at the top of the building. She was overwhelmed and wondered if such was the strength of a super-class demonic beast. The Monkey King heard her, his face distorted into a smile, saying that he's much stronger than any ordinary super-class demonic beast. Lu Renjia tried to interrupt it to ask a question, but it kept babbling, asking him to join them as the experiment would make him stronger. Before it could finish its speech, Lu Renjia punched it so hard that it flew towards the top of another building, while asking why it wasn't done talking, and told it that it spoke so much that it was annoying. Meanwhile, Nape was standing in front of the warehouse where he had been left earlier. His arms were crossed, and it seemed like he was deep in thought. When he realized that he was just standing there, he suddenly sprinted and said he should hurry up and escape. He was only able to take a few steps when he noticed the silhouette of the Monkey King approaching him, but to his surprise, it crashed into the ground with great impact that he was blown away by it. Lu Renjia arrived right after the crash, and the startled Nape was standing behind him while he was interrogating the Monkey King, asking it what the water bear was and its objective. The Monkey King tried to play dumb, pretending not to know what he meant, so Lu Renjia glared at it, telling it to stop pretending as he knows that the insignia on its back was a water bear. Lu Renjia was surprised when it confessed that it was once an escort. It said that it suddenly woke up in an experiment glass with its memory gone, and when it followed its body's intuition, it found the group of demonic beasts where its body was the leader of. It attempted to return to the human village, but no one was willing to come near, nor interact with it, so he was very lonely. As Nape heard the Monkey King's story, he realized the purpose of its experiments. It did not have anyone of its kind, so it was creating them. With a sinister look on its face, the Monkey King told them that his experiment would be a success this time with the three of them, but Lu Renjia sarcastically retorted that it was a good idea to stitch them. Lu Renjia bargained with the Monkey King to answer his last question in exchange for Nape. It doubted his sincerity but proceeded to criticize the offer and called Nape the weakest option. Both were ignoring the protesting Nape behind them. Lu Renjia asked it if it remembered where it woke up. It proudly answered that he did. He even went back once, and as it started to describe the location, saying it was in the west, but its body suddenly started swelling up so much, to the point that its body imploded. Blood splattered everywhere, including Lu Renjia's clothes, which surprised him. Lu Renjia was disappointed while looking at the pool of blood left in the area, with Nape behind him, asking if he was seriously going to give him to the beast. At the Peach Blossom Village, Lu Xiangxiang was warmly welcomed by the residents, asking why she was alone and if she encountered any danger. She mentioned that she encountered danger but was able to bring the supplies back thanks to the help of an elite. As they heard the word elite, all their attention went towards the now shabby-looking Nape. They crowded around him and praised his physique, as he proudly introduced himself as Nape, a white silver-level escort. But Lu Xiangxiang, who was watching from the sidelines, felt like the residents were describing an animal with their praises. Lu Xiangxiang recalled the time when she parted ways with Lu Renjia, where he said that she could rest assured now that they knew each other's little secrets. Her face was filled with dread when she recalled the remainder of the memory where her sister was warning her. She asked what she would do if she couldn't kill the person who knows her identity, and her sister responded that there would be no other choice but to marry him. At the same time, Lu Renjia sneezed and thought if the old man was scolding behind his back. He was now traveling towards the west to look for clues. While complaining because the west was so big, he was also complaining about the insignia that he has and questioned why the old man couldn't prepare a higher level one for him. Mankind has been reduced from the apex predator to the lowest level, and during the beginning of the apocalypse, mankind relied on leftover food found in the wilderness to survive until mankind gathered together and built base towns. Towns with different functions play their roles as respective organs, while the blood circulating through them is the circulation and operation of supplies which escorts are in charge of. A group of escorts was traveling across the city ruins, and one of them was complaining to their boss that he couldn't work anymore due to hunger and suggested that they should find something to eat. The boss turned to ask the sixth brother if they still had anything left to eat. He responded that they were already out of dry food and medicine, as Aliang, the one in charge of those supplies, was killed when they crossed the river. The boss sighed in surrender and told them to spread out and find something to eat. They all exclaimed in agreement, and the boss cautioned them to be quiet and not alert any demonic beasts. The boss stood guard and was worried about this escorted journey that took them a week, and 12 of his brothers were sacrificed for it. He thought that he had to reward the survivors when they got back. One of them returned holding a cockroach the size of his torso. Although no one knew what it was, everyone looked at it with disgust and questioned if they could really eat it. The guy holding the cockroach grabbed one of its legs and said that it was a cockroach, the world's most tenacious creature. Everyone gathered around him as he started munching on it. He said that he heard that it tasted like chicken, very crunchy. They eagerly asked him if it really tasted like chicken, and the realization suddenly hit him. He doesn't know what chicken tastes like, and the boss realized that it must have been old Lu who taught him all that information. The guy confirmed that old Lu did, and the atmosphere turned gloomy as they remembered their old leader that died years ago, so the guy proposed that they should not talk about it anymore. He added that he was also told that the cockroaches live in groups, so if they look around, there should be enough for all of them. At that moment, a swarm of cockroaches appeared behind the guy and the rest of the group was startled. He tried to warn the guy, who was their second brother, but it was too late. The cockroaches flocked towards him and munched on him until only his bones remained. As the rest of the group was fending off the cockroaches, the boss tried to hold the cockroaches back so his other brothers could retreat with the parcels they were carrying. The sixth brother called out to the boss, and when he looked back, he saw a gigantic cockroach leg pierced through his chest. The sixth brother was dragged away by the legs in his chest and he yelled, telling his boss to run and not to worry about him. The boss was startled when a gigantic cockroach emerged from the direction where the sixth brother was dragged, and the sixth brother could still be seen dangling from one of its legs. On the outskirts of the city, Lu Renjia suddenly stepped on a huge cockroach, the one as big as a human's torso. He looked down and was awestruck at how big it was. The leader faced the gigantic cockroach and told his brothers to run as he held the beasts back. The leader did not last that long as the gigantic cockroach immediately impaled his back with its legs, piercing through the chest. Only 2 of the escorts remained and they were killing off the smaller beasts with their guns, but the beasts just kept on increasing. The black-haired guy told the blonde to take the parcels and go. The blonde tried to protest, and he was about to cry when the black-haired guy ran out of bullets. The blonde did not know what to do, but the black-haired guy seemed to have made his resolve. He apologized to the blonde guy that he had to encounter this problem on his first escort mission. Then he reminded him and made him understand that the duty of an escort was to deliver the parcels at all cost, all the while holding a grenade in his hand. The blonde tried to hold back his tears as he confirmed that he understood. The black-haired guy told the blonde that if he understood then he have to go, as the gigantic cockroach started peeking from the tall building in front of them. The black-haired guy tried to get the attention of the beasts by spreading his arms, revealing the inside of his cloak that was full of explosives. The black-haired guy, which was the third brother, exploded, but the gigantic cockroach remained unharmed. The blonde closed his eyes and cursed as he was running away from the beast when he came across Lu Renjia. The blonde was shocked that someone was there and immediately asked Lu Renjia if he was an escort, to which Lu Renjia proudly confirmed, adding that he's the strongest black iron level escort. The blonde was glad and immediately asked for Lu Renjia's help as he handed him the parcel. He introduced himself as Yuming, An escort from the Yutang escort agency informally asked Lu Renjia to help him complete the escort mission, but Lu Renjia was not listening to him as something caught his attention. Yuming continued to explain the situation to Lu Renjia, that there were 32 escorts in their agency and he's the only one left, and because he's injured and no longer have the energy to run, he'll hold off the demonic beasts that were catching up to him, so Lu Renjia should hurry up and leave and send the parcel to the town head. Lu Renjia have his back turned to Young Min, his hair started blazing red as he told Young Min to wait a moment. He placed his huge bag to the ground and switched to a punching position and demolished the beast in the blink of an eye. Young Ming's eyes widened while Lu Renjia immediately turned his attention back to him and apologized for not listening, his hair now turning back to its normal color. Lu Renjia showed his appreciation towards escorts like Youngming's group, but Youngming did not hear it and asked what he was saying just now, so he just waved it off as nothing. As they stood in front of Youngming's comrades' makeshift graves, Youngming thanked him and invited him to go together to report to the Union and for the remuneration. Lu Renjia refused and told Youngming that he didn't need it, but he timidly asked Youngming to show him the way as he had been wandering aimlessly for days, while showing the map in his hands. Later, news was spreading that the platinum-level Crimson Shura god of the Dragon City's Tinder bases has mysteriously disappeared. The Union hasn't received any reports about him for almost a year. People were gathering in front of a missing poster of a man with blazing crimson wings as they speculate on what could have happened to someone who can destroy the entire Tianfu base in one blow. Lu Renjia was standing behind those people when someone pushed him and told him to get out of the way and step aside. A man in a suit recognized Lu Renjia and called him the strongest Black Iron level escort, with emphasis on the strongest, and asked him if he wanted to duke it out with the Crimson Shura as he was very concerned about the news. Lu Renjia sighed and told them that it was hard to say if he could beat the Crimson Shura, but a tie should be possible. He then told them to have fun chatting and bid farewell, saying that he's going for his next mission. The people in the building started mocking him, calling him trash, and saying that he should watch his back. He simply smiled while taking a sip at his hot water and told them that it was such a pity that they mock him for being insane while he mocks them for not being able to see the Crimson Shura's true intentions, and he told them that they should take this opportunity to write a letter of duel and win without fighting. The people started laughing and called him shameless, but he paid them no mind this time as he examined the announcement board. He recalled Youngming's instruction that the place he was looking for was at the east side for the Tianfu base, near a town called Zhanghua, thus he needed to find a mission to the east to avoid alerting the enemy. He was staring into space when an announcement about hiring Black Iron escorts for a mission towards the east side of the base. It caught Lu Renjia's attention as it was the mission he was just talking about. The lady up on the podium stated that the mission was to escort Miss Yurong to Zhanghua town, but there was a special requirement for this mission. She pulled the curtain that was covering the item beside her, revealing a sweating, voluptuous and beautiful lady inside a cylindrical cabin. The announcer said that aside from Miss Yurong, they must also escort the cabin she's in as Miss Yurong cannot leave it due to some special reasons. The men in the crowd went haywire as they stared at Miss Yurong's plump chest, and everyone was eager to volunteer. Miss Yurong thanked everyone for their interest, but she reminded them that there was no road to walk on and there are all sorts of terrains towards Zhanghua town, so she was looking for an escort who could carry her along with the cabin throughout the entire journey. The eagerness of the men in the crowd died down as they realized the arduous task needed to be done for this mission. Lu Renjia suddenly appeared on stage and pressed his face to the cabin, saying that they don't need so many people as he can do the mission on his own. This frightened Miss Yurong, who thought that he was a ghost. The announcer reprimanded Lu Renjia and told him that he shouldn't come on stage without permission. The crowd were also mad at him, and they started throwing things at him. One of the escorts criticized him for saying that he could carry the cabin by himself, but the bald escort thought that his idea to keep the girl all to himself was genius. He flexed his muscles and loudly announced that he was a strength-type awakener, so he was the only one who could complete the escort mission. He came up on stage and tied a rope to the cabin while telling Lu Renjia to step aside. He was able to lift the cabin a few inches on the ground and the crowd cheered, but he was clearly struggling to breathe and the veins on his head were popping out. He was sweating profusely as he told Miss Yurong that he was alright, and he'd be sure to take her to her destination no matter how many months it would take. Miss Yurong told him to wait a moment and asked if it would really need that long to travel, and she also clarified that she did not say that she was only hiring one escort. Lu Renjia, who was standing behind the bald escort, was grinning devilishly as he seemed to have moved his hand rapidly that no one was able to notice. The bald escort suddenly dropped to the ground saying that he twisted his waist, and the crowd told him that's what he got for acting cool. When the bald escort claimed that something definitely hit his waist, Lu Renjia looked away and whistled like he knows nothing about what just happened. Miss Yurong was showing concern for the bald escort, asking him if he was alright. Lu Renjia took the opportunity to proudly declare that he was the strongest black iron level escort, so she should be rest assured and leave it to him. The announcer stepped in and expressed her doubt on his capabilities, as the strength-type escort was not able to carry the cabin. The crowd agreed with her and demanded for him to stop acting all high and mighty and get down. Some even bet to eat the kin on the spot if he could lift the cabin, as he was skinny as the clothes rail. Lu Renjia smiled and proposed a bet to Miss Yurong, saying that if he could carry her to the main entrance, she would assign him as the mission's escort. Miss Yurong looked like she was having qualms about it, but she agreed. Lu Renjia smiled as the deal was agreed upon. He then told everyone to move aside as it was time for delivery, while he keeled the cylinder cabin to its side and rolled it towards the main entrance. Everyone panicked and ran away towards the entrance to make way, while poor Miss Yurong was disoriented as she rolled along with her cabin. The cabin stopped rolling at the main entrance, and Miss Yurong immediately asked if the living cabin had not broken as soon as she got up. Lu Renjia sat on top of the cabin and told her not to worry as it was still in good condition, and proceed to brag that he is able to carry her to the main entrance with a grin on his face. But Miss Yurong was enraged with what he have done, as well as the crowd, who almost got crushed. Lu Renjia laughed awkwardly as he realized that he had aroused public outrage, and Miss Yurong was threatening him that the crowd would be settling things with him now. Lu Renjia paid the threats no mind and started to wrap a rope around Miss Yurong's cabin, which caused her to frantically ask him to stop what he was doing, but he did not stop, and he simply reminded her of their bet. The crowd stopped on their tracks, and they were astonished when they saw Lu Renjia effortlessly carry the cabin with only one hand, like it was his backpack. With a satisfied look on his face, he turned towards Miss Lu Yurong and told her that they were going. Miss Lu Yurong blushed. She couldn't say a word, and she looked like she still could not believe what was happening. A while later, in an unknown valley, a flock of vile birds herded to Miss Lu, and she frightfully told them not to come near her. She desperately asked Lu Renjia to do something instead of just walking. However, he simply told her not to worry because it was just 2 birds. Miss Lu retorted it was easy for him to say such, but she found them annoying and pleaded with him to get rid of them. Lu Renjia thought of it and proposed that he do her wish, but she needed to answer a question first. Without waiting for a reply, he asked her what was the purpose of her visit to Manhwa town. Miss Lu's eyes darted to the side as she wondered why he asked her such a question. He would receive the remuneration once he escorted her safely, and based on the rules and regulations of the union, he was not allowed to ask the question. Lu Renjia was fine with it, but voiced his intention to roll her down the road to arrive at the town faster. Flustered, Miss Lu threatened Lu Renjia that she complained to the union, to which he innocently replied he would not dare threaten her. Without hesitation, he lifted up Miss Lu, saying he simply wanted to increase the efficiency of the journey, so she fell into a panic and told him to stop and said he would go there to see a doctor for treatment. Lu Renjia looked at her, clarifying what was the treatment for. Miss Lu revealed there was a doctor who lived in seclusion in Manhwa town. It is said that he had excellent medical skill and was good at treating intractable diseases, so if her disease interested him, she might receive free medical treatment. Her answer piqued Lu Renjia's attention. A while ago, he had a conversation with Nape about an escort who failed during awakening, so he went to a doctor in seclusion for free treatment but went missing in the end. Lu Renjia fell deep into his thoughts but did not remember hearing of such a person who conducted research on awakened abilities. Nape snorted and was about to say it was normal because he was a mere black iron level. However, remembering how Lu Renjia disposed of the monstrosities, he changed his words and replied it was normal if he had never heard of a minor character since he was an Iron Blood War god. At this moment, Lu Renjia thought of the free doctor Miss Lu wanted to visit and was instantly shocked. Suddenly, a giant bird screeched and Miss Lu questioned why Lu Renjia was still staring blankly ahead. The bird was about to claw over at Miss Lu, but Lu Renjia was quick to stop its advance. He firmly held the bird's claw, causing it to tremble all over. The next second, he smashed into the ground, calling it a bastard. Lu Renjia asked if Miss Lu was alright when a crack in the glass suddenly popped. Lu Renjia was surprised, and when he looked at Miss Lu, she told him to run as smoke slowly emitted through her head. Looking at the small fire on her chest, he asked her if she was alright. Lu Renjia looked at her pitiful appearance and questioned why did she get a low-quality cabin that broke easily after he placed it down. Miss Lu clenched her teeth as she urged him to go and forget about her. Lu Renjia fell silent, but the cabin thoroughly collapsed and Miss Lu's power started to erupt from her body. She could not control it anymore, so she told Lu Renjia to run, and the further it was the better. However, water suddenly poured down on her head. Lu Renjia asked if water was enough, as he wondered if this was her awakened ability. However, Miss Lu erupted and questioned him why he did not run. She cursed regretfully as it was already too late. Lu Renjia looked at her as she burst into flames, burning everything around. As her uncontrollable power exploded, she roared in guilt. She did it again. She had already told him to quickly run, but she was still unable to save him. If this continues, the entire mountain will be set on fire and the villagers nearby will be implicated, so she decides to find a way to control her powers. Suddenly, Lu Renjia replied her fire was impressive, and he agreed that they should find a way. She was shocked to see him without a single burn. He asserted he was the strongest black iron level escort and admitted he was frightened nonetheless, so she asked if he could think of any ideas. He thought about it and mentioned she could perhaps try something. He snapped his finger and summoned his blood armor. He approached her, but she yelled not to touch her. However, he easily carried her and reasoned they could not get to where they were going if he did not touch her, so she wondered if he would not get burned. He simply told her to hang on tightly as he burst through the forest with lightning speed. In a flash, they arrived before a lake, which made Miss Lu confused. Without hesitation, Lu Renjia violently threw her into the lake, so she could only scream as she fell into the water with a plop. He patiently looked at the water's surface when it gradually rumbled from where she fell. Suddenly, a loud explosion occurred, sending a fish into his face as he concluded it was effective. However, the whole lake started boiling, although she just soaked in it for a while. Moments later, the lake continued to boil as Lu Renjia asked her if she was okay now. With an abashed expression, she answered she was alright. She explained that when her body comes in contact with the external environment, her skin's temperature will keep rising. Once the temperature reaches a critical point, her body will burn. The longer the time, the higher the body temperature becomes, and the harder it is to extinguish the fire. Lu Renjia replied that the strength of the flame is at least gold level, which is a pretty good ability. Miss Lu soaked herself in the water but suddenly remembered the past. She once lived in a village in the far west, and it was attacked by demonic beasts all year round. The beasts fed on their food and assaulted the villagers. At first, the villagers could still rely on the weapons from before the catastrophe to defend against the beasts. However, the beasts gradually became stronger until they were no match, and consequently, the village chief chanced upon a magical medicine, declaring that it could help everyone to awaken ordinary powers. Nevertheless, no one could withstand the medicine and the beast could not be held back anymore. They were running out of time, and there was only one last bowl, so the chief told the man it was his turn. The man called Erchan lamented that the chief must be joking as there were so many people who died from drinking it and he had a family to take care of, so he declined the chief's orders. At this moment, everyone pointed at Miss Lu as she was an orphan, and since the village had raised her, they urged her to repay their kindness. She was hesitant, but the villagers mentioned her parents being killed by the beasts and she should avenge them, so she eventually decided to drink it. She drank the medicine and afterward, gradually erupted in flames, which made the villagers surprised as she did not collapse, and they wondered if it was a success. The chief rebuked everyone for being busybody and hurried them to go as the beast was now approaching. At this moment, Miss Lu's body started to blaze with flame. She was left alone to face the beast, and everyone placed their hopes upon her. Miss Lu profusely sweated as she thought of their actions. Her control of herself started to lose. The beast moved toward her as the villagers peeked at the door, ready to witness the birth of their savior. However, a pillar of flame burst forth through the sky and it incinerated everything around it, sending the beast and humans alike to hell. A while later, Miss Lu walked out amidst the flames. She found her fellow villagers had been burned to a crisp. At that moment, she was thoroughly overpowered. Presently, she stated how Lu Renjia thought of her ability as a pretty good one. However, she wished she had never drunk that soup as she would not possess such a horrible ability. She further added that someone like Lu Renjia would not understand how she felt. Lu Ren sighed and replied maybe she was right. He advised her not to overthink as it was all fate at the end, which left her out of words. Moments later, Miss Lu questioned if he really was only a black iron level escort, as her flame can even burn an SSR class demonic beast to ashes, but he did not even have a single scratch. Lu Renjia confirmed without hesitation, he was the strongest black iron level escort. Miss Lu stared at him and revealed he was as strong as the person who put her into the living cabin, and that person's arms were covered with scales. Lu Renjia turned serious as he hurriedly grabbed Miss Lu closer and he asked her the person's appearance, and it was the one who told her to go to Zhanghua town. Miss Lu's eyes widened in shock and described that the person was wearing a gas mask and she could not see his face. The person grabbed her neck, causing her to lose consciousness from the chilly air as he told her she was sick and advised her to see the doctor in Zhanghua town for help. Miss Lu frightfully asked Lu Renjia if he knew the person as well, however, his eyes were focused on her chest. She also looked down and was immediately shamed. Fire blazed all over her and another massive explosion erupted. Miss Lu hurriedly swam into the lake and accused him of being a pervert as his hair burned to a crisp, but he reasoned he was innocently deep in thought. She hurriedly brought back the topic and revealed that the person also carried her to the town base and left her some money to hire an escort. Lu Renjia asked if there were any weird-looking symbols on the man, but she did not notice anything. Lu Renjia thought for a moment and decided to set out to meet the doctor. However, she brought up the problem that without the living cabin, she could not get out of the water. It was then that Lu Renjia thought of an idea. Moments later, Lu Renjia could be seen carrying a huge water jar with Miss Lu inside and her face in disbelief. She complained about what she was put in, but he retorted she should be grateful that he found something after going so far. However, Miss Lu was unconvinced and asked if he was trying to get revenge, to which he replied she should just bear with, so she declared she would definitely file a complaint about him to the union. Meanwhile, a doctor seemed to be delighted with the fine and warm day. Soon, his new patient should be arriving. Later, Lu Renjia arrived at a barren place where they did not even find a demonic beast. He found it strange that there were no traces of movement, which was too abnormal. Miss Lu wondered if the place they arrived at was the right one, as she wondered if the doctor was there. He assured her it was right, but if they had to walk around the ruins to find the place would be a little difficult. However, they suddenly notice a building so eye-catching. Later, they arrived at the building and Lu Renjia knocked on its door. Miss Lu wondered if anyone was there when a group of people suddenly burst out of the door as they asked if someone wanted to see the doctor. They frantically welcomed him as they invited him to come in. They pulled him inside to arrange a body checkup first before the surgery. They also inquired about what kind of room he liked and suggest they could live together if he wanted. Right then, the doctor came and reprimanded the group for being noisy in the hospital. As everyone bowed their heads to apologize, the doctor noticed Lu Renjia. He realized he was the reason for the liveliness and welcomed him. He introduced himself as Chi-like as he asked how could he help. Lu Renjia revealed he was just an escort, pulling the rope tied in the water jar. After putting it down, Miss Lu emerged from the water and greeted everyone. Chi-like stared at her as he asked what the problem was and why she was inside a water jar. Pulling her hand out of the water, she urged the doctor to take a look. The next second, her hand blazed into flames. This interested Chi-like and recognized it as a transformation-type ability. He now realized she was soaked in the water because she could not control the ability at her own will. Chi-like muttered it seemed to be the after-effect of an incomplete awakening caused by an impure medicine. Miss Lu gasped and was impressed by the doctor's words. Chi-like then beckoned at one of his men as he decided to go in and talk over the details. Right then, the man's muscle veins bulged as he lifted the water jar. Entering the hospital, Chi-like remembered Lu Renjia and with a sinister smile, he asked if he wanted to do a body checkup as well. Lu Renjia declined and replied he was perfectly fine, but the man behind him revealed a terrifying aura. Suddenly, sharp claws emerged from the man's hand as he roared at Lu Renjia that he should not go against the doctor's decision. The man brandished his claws with a hideous smile, but Lu Renjia effortlessly evaded it. Afterward, he smashed the water jar's lid into the man's head, shattering it to pieces. The man screamed as he held his head and frantically asked what was wrong. Lu Renjia pouted and questioned why the man stole his line. At the same time, the doctor hurriedly came back and inquired about what was going on. He approached the man and ordered him to leave as he was being rude to the guest. After the man left in dejection, the doctor apologized and asked if Lu Renjia was hurt. Lu Renjia replied that just because he refused to do a body checkup, they wanted to rip his body apart. The doctor sweated and denied the words since there was a cause he wanted him to stay. He reasoned that the patients have some mental disorders and they do things impulsively and unrhythmically, so he was afraid of putting Miss Lu in their care. Lu Renjia asked the doctor what he was trying to say. The doctor answered that Miss Lu would also need to be escorted after she was treated, and it was not easy to find an escort in the village, and further added that he would not find any local products. he invited Lu Renjia to come in for a while for a cup of tea while waiting for the operation to be completed instead of wasting time strolling around. Sitting lazily on the chair, Lu Renjia wondered why he ended up here when only wanted to avoid them and sneak in. He finds the doctor very suspicious, but he cannot see his true colors, so he decides to seek a chance to look around the place later. As he smelled the tea, he noticed something wrong with it, so he poured it back into the pot. Throwing away his cup, he declared the hospital definitely was unusual. As he walked along the hallway, he proceeded to find Miss Lu first, as he could not let the doctor treat whatever illness she had. Suddenly, he saw Miss Lu's figure, and he called out to her, asking why her body was not burning anymore and if her illness was really cured. Miss Lu replied affirmatively, saying she was fully cured. Afterward, she turned to him, and with a blushed expression, she thanked him for escorting her and saving her life. As she went closer, she told him that his kindness should be repaid, and she had already thought about it for a while. Revealing her chest, she offered her delicate body in return. Lu Renjia's face warped into frustration as his hand buzzed with lightning. Without hesitation, he punched his face, yelling to snap out of it. Consequently, everything before him shattered like glass as he cursed the doctor. He was cautious this whole time, but he was still fooled by an illusion. Suddenly, mechanical arms emerged ahead of him, and their hideous cannon-like mouths targeted him. Lu Renjia remarked that the products he had come for were not from the local area. However, he found himself surrounded by demonic beasts and human skulls, standing in a room filled with water. In the meantime, one of the patients with spiky hair asked another patient with a bowl cut if they really had to release all the demonic beasts just for an escort. The one with the bowl cut appeared uneasy but responded that they had to release it as well. Upon hearing this, the patient with spiky hair was surprised and began to sweat profusely as he tried to confirm if he had heard correctly. The one with the bowl cut continued to explain that they had to do this because the doctor couldn't determine the strength of that particular guy. Although the patient with spiky hair was reluctant, he released the beast anyway while warning it not to come looking for him if it wasn't full enough. The bowl cut guy became even more nervous and told him to shut up and just do what the doctor says. Suddenly, the door behind Lu Renjia opened, revealing the silhouette of a gigantic beast with glaring red eyes. Meanwhile, at the doctor's laboratory, Miss Yurong lay on the operating table, attached to a plethora of medical cables. She asked the doctor why she wasn't burning, and the doctor, who had his back towards her and was preparing something, told her that he had injected a body temperature inhibitor to temporarily control her body temperature. While the doctor continued with his preparations, Miss Yurong asked him where her escort was and if he was coming. The doctor replied that Lu Renjia had another mission, so he left first. Miss Yurong was puzzled because she hadn't received confirmation of the completion of the escort mission yet. The doctor told her that maybe he would come back later after he finished his other mission. Turning towards her, he asked what kind of treatment she wanted. Closing her eyes, Miss Yurong reminisced about the bodies she had scorched. She told the doctor that, if possible, she would like to return to the way she was before her ability awakened. With a sinister smile on his face, the doctor assured her that anything she wanted was possible. To ease her worries, he told her that everything would be better when she woke up. However, he then cuffed her to the medical bed, startling Miss Yurong. The doctor explained that it was to prevent her from moving too much due to pain and causing a mess in his laboratory. He gave her a friendly smile and reassured her that everything would be all right. Despite this, Miss Yurong felt uneasy and asked the doctor to wait for her escort to return before proceeding with the operation. However, the doctor refused and told her that it was all right. He then made a disturbing comment, saying that she could join him in hell once the treatment was over. He pressed a button and gave her a menacing smile that distorted his face. Miss Yurong screamed and writhed in pain as electricity coursed through her body. A white liquid began filling up a tube, and the doctor laughed hysterically, pleased with the results. He claimed that it was the key to the new world. All the while, Miss Yurong started to burn up behind him. Her mind started to drift towards her painful past. The village ostracized her for causing the death of her parents and forbid their children to play with her when she was still a child. When she grew up, wives attacked her and called her a loose woman for seducing their husbands. Lastly, the village pushed her to drink the medicine and had the audacity to call her their last hope. She was losing consciousness as she questioned the misfortunes that happened to her when she did not do anything at all. The doctor was still celebrating his results and was happy that the documents provided by his master were real when the spiky-haired patient interrupted him. Amidst all this, Miss Yurong clenched her hands onto Lu Renjia's coat, asking for someone. The doctor reprimanded the spiky-haired patient for entering into his laboratory when he was told not to, but the patient was in a panic, pointing into the wall and mentioning the escort, which annoyed the doctor and told him to stop dilly-dallying. Cracks were created into the wall the patient was pointing to, and Lu Renjiao burst out of it, with the demonic beasts still wrapped in his body, telling them to get lost, and at that same time, Miss Yurong asked to be saved.